Hey guys, and welcome back to the Franchise Tagged podcast. It is season 3, actually, third season of this thing, episode something. We're at a loss right now. It's the week 7 recap. That's all we know. We're talking about the week 8
hmm
games that are coming up and the week 7 games that just happened. We missed last week, so the episode numbers are all funky, and I'm I'm at a loss trying to keep up. So we'll kick things off by letting you know that we are everywhere that you can find podcasts. So check us out if you would like to listen to us through your ear holes instead of watch us through your eye holes. And we will get right into our Week 7 recap if you would like to kick us off Thursday night with the Steelers at Bengals.
Yeah. So I want to intro this whole thing with I've had a pretty good couple of weeks of doing our pick'ems, which link is in the description if you want to join the pick'ems and go head to head with us every week to see who's coming out on top with these pick'ems. Now I've slim lead on you over the past 2 weeks because I've beaten you by one pick each week. However, this past week I completely did not pick who was going to win this game. Now I'll go ahead and take earnest for that, and I'll say probably wasn't going to pick the Bengals. So, I'll say that. I'll go ahead. I'll be honest there. Probably wasn't going to pick the massive underdog in this situation with old man Joe Flacco. But on the case of old man Joe Flacco, he outdueled Aaron Rodgers. These two old men that probably shouldn't be starting in the league at this current moment. Joe Flacco made a case. He's filling in Joe Burrow. They got to pick up some wins to keep hope alive until Joe Burrow's back and healthy, and they did just that. And I think across the board, it's just like Aaron Rodgers making mistakes that isn't akin to his career, but has been akin to his recency. Really, just let the game get away from the Steelers there. But honestly, did you get to see much of this game? Because Jamar Chase went wild.
Yeah, I did see some highlights, some of Jamar Chase's highlights. I know he was targeted like 23 times. And it
Mm-hmm.
was like his stat line was a Tua stat line. Like somebody was like, this is more than Justin Fields did. Like it was 17 for 23 or something like that, or 13 for 23. But I did see that. I did see some of his highlights, and yeah, I mean, when you're Joe Flacco and you've got a guy like Jamar Chase and you don't have anything to lose because you're Joe Flacco,
Mm-hmm.
you're just hoping the game's over by the end of it so you don't have to stay up any later. And you're just like, all right, who do we got? Jamar. All right, we're throwing it to him every play. It's kind of an undefeated strategy. And you mentioned that the Bengals were the massive underdogs, and I looked at this game and I was like, the Steelers always lose these. Like the Steelers always lose the games that they're not really supposed to lose. And right as soon as people are like, you know what, maybe this year they're competitors, they're not. No year are they actually competitors, and they will show that to you every time you start thinking that they might be. So this was one that I actually did pick the Bengals in, and I was correct, albeit a little closer than I had I had expected. I didn't think Joe Flacco would be insanely good, but I definitely did think that it would be a little bit more of a competitive looking Bengals team. And it was, they put up 33, which is the offense that we've come to expect from them. And then also the defense we've come to expect from them, letting up 31. So,
Yeah,
all intents and
I
purposes, it's
think.
exactly what we expected.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of that defensive talk is why it's like, okay, it's probably going to be the Steelers here because despite the Steelers not being the greatest and they're not consistent in anything other than going slightly above 500. They are facing a defense that's been kind of besmirched and frowned upon throughout the year. And I mean, all of last season too, when it was like, okay, the defense is Trey Hendrickson. And unfortunately, I fear that this game might actually quell some of these like Trey Hendrickson trade discussions, but we'll be getting more into that in our segment later on when we start talking about the trade block coming up. But yeah, it's definitely like it. The comments Mike Tomlin was making about like, I don't know why you would do this. I don't know why they're doing this to trade away someone that's your starting day quarterback to the division opponent, and then he gets you know. I guess he's not a real big
He's
fan
just
of the
mad he
Browns
lost.
GM right now. Like,
Yeah, well, I feel like that comment was made after the game, right? That was made after they lost, and it was like, well,
that was
I
made
just don't see.
before I thought so.
Oh, Maybe.
That's when
I
I
thought
thought
it.
I had seen it.
I think I
I
read
could
it
be wrong.
after, so I just assumed, but I could be wrong too. But either way, I mean, I feel like talking about like not saying that it's like a bad move for the team, but just saying like it's a move that shouldn't have happened
Hmm.
about another team's GM. Like that just sounds like super salty. Like you're
Yeah,
salty that another team made a move that didn't benefit you. It's like, dude,
yeah.
you're not
How dare
involved in
they
that.
give the opponent we're about to go against the better quarterback? That's ridiculous. I can't believe this. I don't
Yeah,
care what
like
other
what?
factors went into it.
Yeah. Who cares that they gave up a pick for it? Like, what do you mean?
Hmm.
Like the Bengals gave up a pick for a quarterback that had been benched by the Browns.
Yeah.
Like, anyways, we can move on if you don't have anything else to say about Thursday and move into the Sunday games,
Yes.
where our sweet baby child Justin Fields, it unfortunately looks like his future is murky at best in the league. He was benched. He was not doing well. These past few weeks have been really rough for him, just in terms of it was like 3 weeks ago he got hurt and then missed half the game, and then he threw for like 40 yards, and with all the sacks he took against the it was the Broncos, right? With all the
Yeah.
sacks he took, he was negative passing
10.
yardage for the team.
Yeah.
Like it's just not a good look when you can't, for lack of a better term, be quarterbacky. And I just I've always believed in him as somebody who has the talent that just needs to be unlocked. And I thought that reuniting with his college teammate Garrett Wilson, where this was a connection that was super dynamic at Ohio State, and I
Hmm.
just assumed that that connection would be unlocked. And Justin Fields, who had shown flashes every stop of the way in Pittsburgh, he showed that he could be a consistently safe quarterback, and then he would have a couple deep shots to George Pickens. And I was like, well, I believe in Garrett Wilson a little bit more than I believe in George Pickens. So maybe that'll be a little bit better. And I believed in Aaron Glenn a little bit more than, maybe not more than I believed in Mike Tomlin, but at least decision making wise, I don't think Mike
Hmm.
Tomlin is the greatest decision maker of all time. And I just kind of I had higher hopes for this Jets team. I really did. And a lot of that rode on my high expectations for Justin Fields that just were not met, and that led to him getting benched.
Yeah, it's a really tough situation for Fields because when you watch the team play, just as a whole, it feels like the game isn't flowing good. Like something that isn't, predicated on Fields is the issue at the first and foremost. Like whether it be they have a positive gain, but then they, rack in penalties, or, whatever the situation might be. It just feels like as a whole they are setting themselves up to fail each and every down, each and every play. And this is one of their like technically better games for penalties. They only had five. It's not a great look for them, and it feels like not even Tyrod would really improve the offense as a whole. Like it feels like in a lot of stats, Fields is a middle of the pack quarterback, and then for some of the stats that like matter, he's slightly below average. But I don't feel like that alone gives you an 0-7 start. And I mean, the defense is playing good. I mean, they've lost two games back to back where the opponents only put up 13 points. So the defense isn't the issue. Aaron Glenn, with his prowess being on the defensive side of the ball, I don't think is like the problem. I'm not sure if it's Tanner Engstrand, the offensive coordinator, kind of having too much on his plate now that he's not just like Ben Johnson's shadow, or what the issues might be. But it just feels like there's no rhythm to the offense, and that very well could just be Fields double clutching or what have you. It's just they're racking up sacks. The protection doesn't feel like it's all there, but despite at the start of the year we were kind of praising the protection. And then Brees Hall, the run game hasn't really gone the way that we can expect from Brees Hall throughout his career thus far. And so it's just every facet of the Jets feels like something's missing, something's broken, something needs fixed. So putting in Tyrod for the last half of the year doesn't, to me, scream like this is the move we make to start winning games. It's kind of more so like, all right, cut our losses here for the year and kind of just look to see what we can do next year, see if we can gain any momentum throughout the rest of the season, find our rhythm, see if Tyrod is the secret to gathering rhythm, basically. Because I don't think it's Fields' fault, but it very well could just be one of those indirect results of that.
Yeah, just any change being something that could spark a change across the unit. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this the rest of Sunday, I was under the weather Sunday, so I kind of passed out during the games, unfortunately, and did not get to catch much of them at all. I saw a little bit of the Eagles game, and that was a game that kind of solidified that to me at least, that the Vikings are not the same juggernaut that they have been, and not that they've been like a huge juggernaut, but they've always been solid and competitive. And it seems like they're just not able to be that anymore until they find a solution at quarterback. I don't think it's Wentz. Earlier in the season, I don't think it was JJ McCarthy. I don't think he's the answer. So I just it's not a unit that I'm overly afraid of when it comes to their abilities against other teams. And I'm just making sure that they actually did lose the game. They did. Okay, cool. I was like, because I did not watch, I did not catch the end of it. I passed out just after halftime. So I'm like, let me make sure there wasn't like a Carson Wentz masterclass that I missed. But no,
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of the thing where we can get into that now. I will come out and say I was wrong about Sam Darnold and I was wrong about Geno Smith. Earlier in the season and in the offseason, throughout the offseason, I was under the very strong opinion that the Seahawks made a massive mistake trading away Geno and that the Raiders were going to be the much better unit with Geno than the Seahawks were with Sam Darnold. I thought Sam Darnold would revert to his Jets ways and not look like a competent quarterback. And it's looking more and more like the Vikings should have kept Darnold instead of moving on to JJ McCarthy. And obviously that's impossible to do. You've invested a top 10 pick in JJ McCarthy, so you're not going to just never see what this young quarterback has, but in hindsight, maybe they should have. And I don't know where this Vikings team goes from here.
Yeah, I will say one thing on that is we look at these two teams and it feels like for the past few years we have in our mock draft specifically been like, yeah, offensive line, man, go ahead and go get some of that. You kind of need some of that. And the Seahawks, they went ahead and they got Zabel, and they've had some picks across that offensive line in years past. So it's always been like, injuries to the tackle position, which was the main thing last year. And then obviously the center of the offensive line wasn't as great, so then they go ahead and they pick Zabel. And these, moves to help build up a successful offensive line. And, that certainly helps because when you are comparing these two teams side by side and you look at Geno and you look at Darnold, like Darnold's got a pretty good pocket and he's also a little bit mobile. Now, Geno isn't, I mean, I'd say they're like comparable in mobility. They do it if they have to. They're not super going to go pick up first downs all the time with it. But the thing with Geno is he's gotten sacked 19 times this year. Ashton Genty really is like hit or miss on if he's going to have a gap to run through. And luckily it's Ashton Genty, so he's going to break some tackles and gain some yards after the hole is non-existent. But at the bare minimum, like you need to have an offensive line hold for long enough to throw the ball. And so I think the main thing with Geno Smith is these pressures getting to him, the offensive line not being as stout, at least as the Seahawks have managed to get their unit for this season. So, in that side-by-side comparison, it's difficult to really be like, oh, well, yeah, it's just Geno, really regressing here when it feels like the offensive line is the strongest, or rather the weakest link for this Raiders team.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I thought that they were. I guess my comparison also, I thought the Seahawks offensive line would be significantly worse than the Raiders because I knew a couple names on the Raiders O line. I knew Colton Miller that was a solid tackle, and a couple other names across that O line. They had drafted Jackson Powers Johnson, who was a big interior offensive line prospect a couple years back, and so this was a unit that I was like, there's a couple bigger names on the Raiders offensive line than there are on the Seahawks. I just didn't realize how bad it was. And I guess something that, not super related, but something that kind of affects my perception of offensive lines is how bad the Patriots was, because I'm a Patriots fan. So just like seeing the quick turnaround where the Patriots offensive line is actually passable now. And it's, Will Campbell's doing amazing work as a left tackle. Like he's borderline top 10 left tackle in the league right now. Like he is keeping that pocket clean for Drake May. Morgan Moses on the right side is doing what he can. Mike Onwenu's back at guard and doing good enough things. Garrett Bradbury is a guy that we just randomly signed in free agency. He's like one of the top pass blocking centers league wide. And so I don't know if it's coaching or what, but we really turned things around in a year, and that's kind of made me realize what other offensive lines are bad instead of just being like, oh, whatever, that offensive line isn't that bad. Look what I've got to deal with. And that's kind of been my stance on it. So I've looked at like the Seahawks offensive line and been like, well, at least they've got good tackles. Look at us. Like, and I guess same with the Raiders, where I'm like, at least they've got a couple good pieces. Look at us. But now that I'm not really looking at us anymore, it's more of a, realizing that there's some pretty bad offensive line play league wide. There's bad players everywhere, and not really taking that into account, I think, is what hurt me the most with my comparison of Geno and Darnold.
Yep. Finishing up our recap of week 7, we'll go ahead and we'll get into a quick little recap of each Sunday night and Monday night football. Starting with, of course, chronologically, Sunday night. How about that Falcons offense?
Dude.
This is... I'll let you take the stage, because there was a certain trade we made in our fantasy football league where, you pronounce yourself a Falcon lever, so we were... Right. I want to hear, as a Falcon lever, what your opinion is. Did you catch any of this game? Did you watch any highlights? What's your take on this?
I did see some highlights. I did see the Bijan Tutty, and he's kind of the bright spot on that team. It just seems like they're so week to week wishy washy. Like 30-0 against the Panthers, losing one week, and then beating the Bills and putting up literally saving my fantasy football week one week. Like that next week, it's literally like went from I don't know if I can believe in this offense at all because they just put up 0 points against the Panthers to I'm heading into Monday night needing an absolute miracle from Bijan and Drake London and coming out on top in that fantasy matchup. I don't know how I won that one. I legitimately do not know how that happened, but next week I feel fully confident that the Falcons are going to put up 40. And then the week after that, I'm sure they're going to drop none. Like it's just going to be a wishy-washy offense until.
I wonder if any of that has to do with the fact that next week they play the Dolphins, and the week after that they play the Patriots. Is there some strong bias there for the Patriots?
I wasn't even looking at the schedule. I was just looking at week to week flip flop. But you know what? I'll put money on it. I'll put money on them being great next week and horrible the week after. But no, it's just such a volatile offense when it comes to success. Which is so weird because they have, that 2024 quarterback class, I think is probably going to be one of the better ones in the next few years. Like teams are going to regret not taking one of those quarterbacks when the next kind of group of players come out of college and into the draft. Like this next class, it doesn't look like it's going to be great for quarterbacks. And the one after that doesn't really seem like it's going to be any better. And seeing Drake May, seeing Caleb Williams, seeing Jaden Daniels, and those three being the top 3, and there still being 3 other quarterbacks that were taken in the top 15 of that class. Like Penix is looking good, not amazing. He's not, Drake May. He's not generational. He's not in MVP talks, but he's looking like a very passable quarterback. He's able to make good reads and good throws, and if he had a little bit more athleticism, if he didn't decimate both his legs multiple times throughout his career, I saw some tweet. I saw a tweet yesterday that was like, why doesn't Penix run? Like he's got these open lanes, and somebody posted a picture of both of his legs in like full casts, like full leg casts when he was at Indiana. And it's like, this is why Penix does not scramble. This is why he doesn't move very well. And so it's just like, he's looking fine. And Bo Nix, for all the flack I give him, and I will continue to do so. This is not me giving him props as a good quarterback or as somebody that I believe in, but he looks like he will be a passable starter and hover around that middle of the pack for the next few years at least, as long as he's with Sean Payton and as long as he's running the system that favors him and his play style so heavily. And a guy like Penix, like I said, has shown those flashes. And it's really just JJ McCarthy has been the only one that's like a bit of an ill-advised pick. But I think that this class is so good that looking at Penix and being like, oh, he's a bit inconsistent, but like he's pretty damn good when he's good, as like one of the worst quarterbacks from that class is really remarkable. So I think they just need to find some more consistency, and I think they will, but I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if it's a new play caller. I don't know if it's a new weapon on offense. I don't know if it's don't pass the ball to Kyle Pitts anymore. Like, is that the solution here? Do we remove the unicorn from the offense? Like, I don't know, but I'm a bit at a loss watching this team. So
yeah, and sticking with the consistent, you're pleading for them to show some consistency. I think on the opposite side of the ball in this game, the patron of consistency, Christian McCaffrey, man, like he is the offense, and with the ebbs and flows of the will Brock Purdy play this week? Find out next week. It's really just like, okay, McCaffrey's the guy. We're going to feed the ball to McCaffrey. He led the team in receiving yards. He led the team in receiving targets. And of course, led the team as a rusher because he's a running back at the end of the day. So he's just getting an insane amount of touches. And man, thank goodness he's healthy for my fantasy football sake, because that was an issue. He gets all these touches. You would hope that he stays healthy throughout this giant workload they're giving him. And it's such a weird season for the Niners because they are so injured, but they are 5-2, and they don't have the most difficult matchups, across the whole league. Like, I think they will ebb and flow, and I don't know the name of the guy that came in for Fred Warner, the backup that played kind of his role this past week, but man, he was playing.
Was it Tatum Bethune?
It probably was. Yeah, it was. 48. I knew him by number. And that is him.
Nice.
But yeah, 48.
Obscure knowledge.
Bethune?
Let's go. Yes, Bethune.
What a guy. Like, the team is going to just keep performing outside of like all of the injuries that they are facing. And I think that's a pretty fair segue into my Monday night game of choice, because who the hell wants to stay up to 1 a.m. to watch a game that starts at 10 p.m.? I watched the Detroit Lions and Buccaneers game. Now, this was a very concerning game for me heading in, because I know of years past, i.e. last year with 22 players on IR, on the defensive side of the ball, like, things can look dicey when we've got practice squatters called up and we are signing people the week of they're joining practice and they're having to see the field. But this defense balled out. I mean, Baker Mayfield made 50 pass attempts. They definitely didn't lean into the run very much whatsoever. They got down and they started hucking that thing. But man, it feels like every single, on the broadcast, the little banner that shows up at the bottom of, oh, here's your starting players this week. And it said like Lions secondary, and then all these people, and then right as a little mini bar under them was, here's the player they're replacing. Here's the player they're replacing. Brian Branch out. Kirby Joseph out. And just across the board, everyone that's injured.
Or suspended. Shout out Brian Branch.
Or suspended. But like, just seeing Rocky Sin kind of ball, Amik Robertson, who was that third corner we had coming into the year, being our one for this game, basically. And then a couple of big-time interceptions made by Arthur Millette. And then there was one that's Hallett the second, I think. I didn't know your name before it showed up on the thing, and I was like, hey, hopefully they can hold their own against Mike Evans and Emeka Egbuka. And then they absolutely did. The man coverage that was played, well, as long as Mike Evans played, all right? Played.
That's what I was getting at.
Um, the man coverage they played across the whole board, they doubled Mika the basically the whole damn time. Really made sure that the ball couldn't be dispersed. And when you're backups and you're being forced into man coverage, those are tough situations against a receiver room that is this good and this fast too. I mean, I feel like Tez Johnson and Mika Vuka, they're fast guys, and so you're coming in off the couch and going against these guys. That's tough. So kudos to the Lions backup secondary. Certainly looked a lot better than our backup secondary of years past. No shade, Kendall Vildor, as he did not play in the game for the Buccaneers. But yeah, just a kind of real rough game for Baker Mayfield against that Superman coverage where you would think, oh, we're going to have all this separation. These are backups. Oh, they're showing man. Great, I'll take these shots. And I feel like it might have been 0-7 for him on completions past 20 yards. Every deep shot he took, it was not coming down in the hands of his receivers.
Yeah.
So
And we'll talk about the kind of the MVP race at a later date. We'll kind of get into the whole as the season dwindles down. We'll get into the dwindling down MVP race. But Baker kind of established himself as the front runner in recent weeks, and this game is not a great mark on his record. And it feels like, I don't know if you remember, but I was like 2 or 3 seasons ago where there was no real front runner for MVP until like week 13. And then it was like, it's Dak. And that week, Dak threw like 4 picks. And so it was like immediately off of Dak. And then it was like, okay, it's Josh Allen. He's been playing pretty well. You know, he's leading a good team. And then that week, Josh Allen threw for like 120 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. And it's like, okay, so it's not Josh Allen. And it's Lamar. Lamar's the name now. And that week, Lamar threw for like 2 incompletions, 5 touchdowns, no picks. And it was like, all right. And that was
this
when
is
Lamar
Lamar.
won his MVP.
Yes.
And it was like the crown falls on the head and you have to perform. And it feels like it's really early for me to be saying that that's how it feels this year, but it feels like the crown fell on Baker's head. He was the MVP frontrunner and he put up a dud. And it's not like he didn't throw for any yards, but 50 passes and 28 completions is not a great, like, it's not a great look for somebody who's in the MVP race. And when another name that is floated in the MVP race, I check me because Patriots bias is going to be in here, but a name that has been floated in the MVP conversation is Drake May. And when you brought up the 20 plus yard completions, how he was 0 for 7. Drake May is like 75% completion percentage on deep passes of over 20 yards. Like he is like getting towards being the best ever at that in a season. Like he's on that pace, and the opponents we're playing are not good. Let me be the first to say it's a cupcake schedule. But when you kind of put that lens on a player, when you put that lens on not this player is outperforming our low expectations to now we have high expectations. This player in Baker Mayfield, in Drake May, they have set high expectations for themselves now, and they are outperforming those, or in Baker's case, they are underperforming those, and that's when you start to see this MVP race kind of narrow down. And Baker, I think, has to play basically a perfect season. Maybe one more game he could have that's like less than perfect. But other than that, I think he's got to have 3-to-1 in touchdown interception ratio rest of season. He's got to have like 65+% completion percentage, and he's got to have like 300 yards a game, I think. And maybe he can have one game that doesn't hit those marks, but he's got to kind of be that gunslinger, high yardage, high touchdowns. We can excuse interceptions every now and then because he is that kind of reckless player, but we need to see that again for him to stay in the MVP race. And again, very early on. So it's not like it's not like I'm saying it's done. He had a bad game. He's not going to be the MVP. MVPs have to be perfect, but we're getting to that point where people are starting to have these names that they're looking at, and the bad games do matter now.
Yeah. One last thing on this Monday Night Football game, because it feels amiss if I don't mention it. The refs were very flaky. Like, there was a lot of missed calls on both sides. It really just felt like, at one point, my wife, watching the game, said, I like this ref. He looks trustworthy. And then throughout, as the game keeps going on, I was like, you know what? he does seem trustworthy. Anytime they're reviewing something, it seems like the right call is being made. However, he doesn't look the brightest because they are missing so much stuff here. There's flags being thrown and picked up when like they really shouldn't be being picked up. The one that comes to mind is the whole stadium started chanting "Refs, you suck," because there was like a phantom OPI on Jamison Williams, a push-off that really didn't look like a push-off. And on the other side of the field, you see like a DB like drag a wide receiver to the ground on opposite side of where the play went. And so then it's like, okay, well, what's going on here? Why did that just happen?
Yeah.
So,
Refs
fluky
have been
refs, they've been good, they've been bad throughout this season. I feel like there's not one game that like there was weeks, like several weeks last season where it's like, okay, this week it was a bad ref week. This is a horrific refing. It feels like we've yet to hit a week like that, but definitely haven't seen a week where we've been like, oh yeah, no, there's no trouble in referee land. Everything looks great over here.
Just in watching the Patriots games, some of them this year, the Bills game was very poorly refed in favor of the Patriots. Without the refs making some of the calls that they made, we don't win that game. And, as impressive as it is that we beat the Bills, I will say we beat them with the refs' help. I think we would have been fine. We would have been, because we also had some bad calls go against us, but like overall, pretty bad for the Bills. And then also against the Saints, we had some we won that game, so it didn't matter. But like the reason it looked so close was because the refs were hoeing us constantly. Like there was a phantom OPI call on us that negated like a 70-yard touchdown. And it was literally like deep shot to Pop Douglas, the second one, because the first one actually did count. There was another deep shot to Pop Douglas where he, again, caught the ball deep, scored a touchdown. And there was a phantom OPI call on the opposite sideline on Diggs. He didn't touch the defender. They just threw an OPI flag and then called it back. And like there was not OPI. But that was one. There were a couple other calls in that Saints game. And so the Patriots have kind of felt both sides of it. And I just think it's the refs being bad. And I just think it's like that's going to happen every week where there's just going to be a game where the refs, one way or the other, I don't think it's malicious. I just think it's that they're not good. They just not good at their jobs.
There's just bad refereeing.
The trade deadline is approaching. And I made a video talking about some Kayvon Thibodeau stuff where I didn't really agree that he should be traded. But we didn't talk about it as a group because last week we were not together as a group on the podcast. So this week we are going to be discussing some of the fire sale-esque teams and discuss some of the top trade candidates from those teams and whether or not we believe they should be traded, where they should be traded, a little bit about these players. So if you would like to get into your first selection of who you would like to talk about.
Yeah, we're kind of going to do this. We'll bounce back and forth between me and him. But when it comes to looking at teams that are going to be given away, obviously the ones that are least win percentage, there was a better way to say that. But the ones with the worst win percentage, I got there. They're the ones that come to mind. So kind of going to be looking at, Raiders, Jets, Saints, Dolphins, Browns, and then there's a slew of other teams we could kind of jump into as well. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start off hot with the Jets because, we've talked about the Jets already this episode. And if you're watching just this segment, stay tuned. Tomorrow, we drop the full episode of the podcast. So subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you'll get tuned in for that. But with the Jets, I feel like Breece Hall is definitely really hovering on that, trade block. It feels like they don't really have much depth behind him. So it's like if he's a guy that Aaron Glenn, really believes in and thinks will overcome the hump that is this current Jets offense, this is definitely a guy I could see them keeping, extending, and trying to make a real identity of the team because he's performed to that level where he could be that guy you build an identity around. However, I feel like with time dwindling down on the trade itself, on the trade block, if he doesn't have a great week next week, and who knows who they name quarterback one, if they keep Fields benched, if they go lean into Tyrod, just depending on his performance next week, if they try to make him the lead horse, they try to make him an identity, and he doesn't, I could definitely see him being traded. And, when you look across the league, there's a lot of injured running backs. There's a lot of running backs that, the Cardinals are just lacerating, bleeding out at the running back position. And then you look at other teams where, they might have healthy running backs, but they don't have a productive rushing offense like, the Chiefs at the start of the year, and definitely some other places as well that you could just see teams improve. And Brees Hall is quite the guy to improve with, but it's a running back. He's not extended. It's a low price point, I think, to hit. I would like to see Brees Hall move on because I do feel like this is an offense and a structure issue with the team, not these players aren't meeting standards.
Yeah, and to kind of just add to that, I think anybody that we're going to be talking about, it kind of puts a nice lens on the timeline that we expect these teams to have. So when you're talking about a guy like Brees Hall, he is younger. He's a younger player in the scope of the league. And so if we don't think the Jets are going to be competitive within the next 5 years, move off of the younger running back. Like, get value out of him while you can. And I think that's where they are. I think they will not be a super competitive team in a competitive AFC East with the Patriots rising and the Bills already being very good. I don't think they will be making a run for anything anytime soon. So if you've got a guy like Brees Hall who you don't need to extend because you don't really need a really good running back when you don't have good offensive line pieces, you don't have a good quarterback, you don't have an amazing defense, you have a fine defense, but it's nothing that's going to carry a team. I think that's where you kind of look to maybe send him somewhere else. And another team that's like that is another AFC East team is the Dolphins. And guys like Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, the edge rushers for them, are guys that I think both could and should be moved because they don't fit that timeline. Where these are guys who have either shown injury history or they are getting older and they are already proven commodities, but they're not doing anything for the Dolphins. They're not going to make them competitors within the next couple of years, which is all these guys might have left. So if there are teams that are offering you day 2 or day 3 picks, I think jump on that because you're getting value for them for the rebuild that you should be entering. The Dolphins, all intents and purposes, should be entering a rebuild soon. You're out Tyreek Hill for the rest of the year and likely the rest
Maybe
of
past that. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think he returns. Jalen Waddle is a guy that has been discussed with the Dolphins, but I don't see them really moving him. I think he's too valuable of a piece where if you bring in a new quarterback in the offseason, you want to have a wide receiver for him to throw to, and Jalen Waddle is that. But Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, too old to match the timeline if you were to draft a new quarterback this offseason or the next, and too valuable to just kind of leave on the roster to rot, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then, as we're talking about like timelines, another one that comes to mind here is looking at the Raiders and Jacoby Myers. Young guy and could definitely like not the youngest, but like could definitely be extended and be part of this little regime that however long the Pete Carroll era spans here. However, the team is not performing at all an expectation to where you would think this is going to be something he wants to stick around for because he already made known in the preseason that he wanted out. He requested a trade, didn't get what he wanted, and now we've seen more of that season go by. And it feels like, again, as I had spoken on with like a lot of teams need running back because the health across the league feels sparse. Having a full healthy roster is, definitely just going to become more rare as you get further into the year. And having depth, if, Jacoby Myers is your depth later in the year and you get some of your healthy guys coming back, that could be massive for you, really, because I feel like he's a big enough contributor where if you've got some hurt running wide receivers right now, looking at you, Bucks, like you can give yourself a new guy and you can see that guy immediately perform. And then when more people come back, you just have more weapons. You got more cars in your garage. And so I think Jacoby Myers is one I would definitely want to see moved because he's just like, it's not going to be a great year for the Raiders. I don't feel like they're going to suddenly turn that around, and they could, but you got an older head coach, you got an older quarterback. It feels like these timelines just aren't aligning. We don't have a young tandem at quarterback and wide receiver. You have Jacoby Myers and then a guy you're probably going to move off of next year, Geno Smith, and just the roster is going to be a rotating door. So when you're looking at where people need wide receiver and a lot of these talks being made of like where wide receivers could be traded because everyone's hurting, I feel like Jacoby Myers could definitely land himself several places because he's just proven he can be a 1 despite never really having to be a 1. So you go ahead and you put him at 2 again, and you're going to have, a T. Higgins situation, basically. Like,
Yeah.
always the 2, but always great.
Yeah. I think to kind of we could discuss the other big name on the Raiders that could be traded. I don't think he will
Mm-hmm.
be cap wise, but I'm actually going to move to the Saints, which are a team that I fully believe should have a fire sale. I think they should have last year when they were showing that they were not going to be competitive. But basically, anybody with a pulse is what you've written down here for the Saints that they'd be looking
Yep.
to trade. The biggest name that I've heard floated is Chris Olave, who is somebody who's had concussion issues in the past, and they may look to move off of him because they will not be competitive in the near future. I think Spencer Rattler is outperforming expectations, but he's still not good. He's still not great. He's not going to be able to carry a team, and he's going to be the kind of guy that is going to get you middling records that are not going to be competitive, not going to make any playoff runs, but you're going to be just good enough that you're not getting great picks. So I think that that's ultimately detrimental to the team. And being able to move off of a young guy like Chris Olave, who could get you some draft capital, I don't know about a first round pick, but never say never, and you never know. And then anybody on that defense that is aging, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, anybody who again does not fit the timeline, I think should and could be moved. I said that backwards, but I think that the Saints are the team that I expect to have the most fire sale type trade deadline. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if they will, but I definitely think they should, where anybody who is asked about should be available to trade because they don't have a strong identity right now. And I don't know what the fix is other than get a bunch of picks and completely rebuild. And I said the same thing for the Dolphins, but the Dolphins at least have some established talent like Jalen Waddle. And
Mm-hmm.
Tua is okay. And Devon Achan is somebody who's a good running back. Like they've got some good pieces who are still younger. The Saints just don't have that. It's Olave who's not been consistent and nobody else. So this is a team that I think if the phone rings, you should be making a deal. But
Yeah.
again, who knows if that actually happens?
And the other thing with the Saints, they go through it every offseason. Their cap situations. And if you can get ahead of that, because the thing with their cap situation is it's never an issue that heading into the day, the deadline, that they're negative 30 mil. Like they always manage to make that 30 mil. The issue isn't that they're gonna get in big trouble because they don't hit that deadline. The issue is that they never have money to spend in free agency. You're a new regime coming in. You need to build your own identity. You want to get guys from outside of the building that fit what you want to have your offense, your defense, your scheme be. They consistently haven't been able to do that. They've had the same core of guys, they've had Alvin Kamara, they've had Cameron Jordan, and I feel like a lot of big names that they keep along their defensive and offensive lines. The issue is that they never inject new talent into the team unless it's coming at like a real cheap price because they never have that much money to work with. So, you know, hell, send Taysom Hill to Sean Payton. I don't care. Get him out of there. You get these, staples of Saints out of there because it's a new era. You need to really just inject new life into the team and you need to mold it to what Kellen Moore wants. And whether or not that happens, whether or not they have this huge fire sale and then they stake everything on these younger guys that they currently have, maybe keep Rashid and maybe keep Rashid's the right name, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Rashid Shaheed.
Keep him, keep Chris Olave, and try to keep this younger core you have, but just just free up as much cap as you can prior to the end of the season. Have people that you might look to actually want to bring in for a pretty penny in the free agent period, because with drafting and with the free agent period is how you're going to build your team. And if you don't have money to do anything in free agency, well, then you can at least trade these people away and get this draft capital for that. And so it's a fire sale that is much needed to get them back on track because they've never had money to spend and they never have had excess draft picks. So you go ahead, you get excess draft picks, and you get money to spend, and you could actually see a turnaround in 2026 for this team. Right now, the season's at a loss, really. and you're going to have to make changes to immediately rectify that next year. And fire sale is the way to go, in my eyes, for the Saints.
Yeah. Then the last player I'll talk about before I let you talk about whoever else is left is Max Crosby, who is another name that we floated last year, and we've floated, I mean, basically every year that the Raiders have been bad, which has been again basically every year. So he's a guy that holds a lot of value, but again, the Raiders kind of went all in on the now, which was with extending Max Crosby, keeping Jacoby Myers, adding Geno Smith in what you would expect to be a good quarterback for the next 2 to 3 years, and then adding Pete Carroll, who is an older coach who you would expect to be a solid coach for you for, again, the next 2 to 3 years. And outside of that window, I don't think the Raiders are built for that. So Max Crosby is a name that holds a ton of value, but doesn't fit that window of within the next 2 to 3 years. If they're not competitive, I don't see him making that same impact for the team after those 2 to 3 years that I, again, don't see them being competitive for like they had planned. So if they're able to move off of Geno, which I don't think they will, but if they're able to bench him and kind of see what the young talent is, and they want to see, there was the late round quarterback that Brady loved that they drafted. I cannot remember his name right now, but he's on the team. And if they want to see what they have in him, that's completely fine. And then maybe you kind of keep your players because you want to set up the future. But if you're going to stick to Geno because you paid him a decent contract, then I think you need to get rid of Max Crosby while he's still worth something, and then just wallow in your filth for the next couple of years while you're still bad. Like you need to bite the bullet and do something. Make a change at quarterback so that Max Crosby is making an impact in your window, or move your window by trading away Max Crosby, by trading away Jacoby Myers. So you got to do one of the two, but you can't stay stagnant.
Yeah. I feel like the last note I'll make, and I'll open it up to you as well, is we'll do a little bit of we like to talk about our favorite teams. Looking at the Lions, just obviously not in a position to do a fire sale, but looking to be one of those buyers. And same story with the Patriots as of right now. And so when we're looking at the Lions, I don't know what the recovery windows are for all of our defensive players. That's something that they keep in house, and we'll know whenever they're listed as questionable day to day, whatever. I would like to see a defensive back come to town. We played a great game with our secondary that we had, but you can't rely on that for the rest of the season. You have to add some more proven talent than people making their first starts and people making their first snaps of defense in the league. And so I think, definitely want to add a more veteran presence there. And then the pass rush, it hasn't been great. Despite the return of Aleem McNeil, that certainly was a big help in Monday night. But I think adding just one other player opposite, maybe that may be Jermaine Johnson, or maybe that may be Bradley Chubb from these teams that we've already talked about. But, I think going ahead and getting a guy, a 1-year flyer deal to make an impact on a not so healthy position of your defense, whether that be edge or whether that be in the backfield of the defense with the secondary. I think these are definitely places I could see them go. I'm just not sure if after that performance on Monday night, we're really willing to spend potential draft capital on those things.
Yeah, for the Patriots, the positions that I see them mocked to trade for lack of a better term, the most are guys like AJ Brown, or like receivers or running backs, and those are positions that I don't think we need to trade for. Like, do I think that our receivers are the best room in the league? Absolutely not. Far from it. But I don't think that we should mess up what's working, especially with Kayshon Boutte coming into his own. And he's a guy who was so hyped up in college and then had a couple of off-the-field issues, but now he's proving that he's fixed those off-the-field issues, he has matured, and he is showing that he's still the same player on the field that he was at LSU. He was one of the better players that LSU has seen at the receiver position, which is absurd to say. But he went to the Patriots in the 7th round. He's made it through 3 regimes. He was drafted by Belichick and made it through the Mayo regime and is still starting in the Vrabel regime. So he is proven to multiple regimes that he should have a spot on the roster. And a lot of these A.J. Brown trades that I've seen have mocked us trading away Kayshon Boutte, and he's just not somebody that I want us to get rid of. It's not that I think he's better than A.J. Brown. I just think that for what we have going right now, there's no reason to mess it up. And a guy like Pop Douglas is a guy that I love in the slot. I think that, if we were to make an upgrade at receiver, he's a guy who I think would lose snaps more than anybody because we're not moving off Diggs. Diggs is our one. That's very clear. Kayshawn is our other outside receiver, and Pop is the slot guy. Like that's such a solid unit that I don't think should be improved upon because of how well it's working right now. So I don't really agree with the Patriots trading for a receiver as much as I understand why people mock it. And then anything else on offense, like maybe we trade for another O-line piece, but I just don't think that they become available. Like I just don't see that. And so I think the place that we really need to make improvements is on the defensive front, where we have a solid defensive line, but we could use some depth at edge, where behind Harold Landry, behind Kayvon Chason, there's not really a whole ton. Keon White is not doing what we expected him to be doing. So I think we could use maybe a Bradley Chubb, maybe a Jalen Phillips, maybe a Jermaine Johnson, but those three guys are in division, and I don't think that's a trade that the Patriots would be able to pay enough to these teams to make unless it is a true fire sale. So I just don't think the Patriots are in the best spot to trade for what they need, and I really don't want them to trade for things they don't need because that's just a waste. So I think as much as I'd love to see them improve, I just don't see a good path to improving. But I hope that I'm proven wrong. I hope that they make a move that surprises me and makes me happy, because there are positions where we could upgrade. We're not perfect. We have holes on the roster, and so improving those holes would obviously be amazing, but it's just not something that I see happening when two of the biggest fire sale teams are in our division, and I just don't see those trades happening.
Yeah, so Reek Woolen to the Patriots. That's
Yay.
that'd make you happy.
I wanted them to draft him.
Yeah.
On draft night, I was like, I want the Patriots to take Reek Woolen. We need to take a corner, and he was a hometown guy for me. He went to my college, so I was a little bit more knowledgeable about him than most people. As far as like, he was a corner who is expected to be drafted out of a college that does not produce draft picks, and he had only been playing cornerback for 1 year. Like, he was a receiver before that. So after one season at corner, he's already made a big enough splash to be named as a draftable player. Why not pick him up in the 4th round, 5th round? And we didn't. And then the Seahawks did. And rookie year Reek Woolen was great. This, since then, hit or miss. But
Since then, Seahawks have, come down on their feelings about him. So that adds him to the trade block. Adds him to your wish list. But with that, that's the end of our segment here. So if you are tuned in for just this segment, go ahead, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you will be notified tomorrow when our full podcast drops, where we go over, a bigger Week 7 recap. And, every week you can expect a different kind of segment. And even coming up as down the stretch here of the season, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to start doing 2 segments. So even more content you'll be missing if you're only watching the segment videos we post standalone. So go ahead, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and stay tuned for all of our podcasts.
Absolutely. And now back to the show. We are going to wrap things up rather swiftly. We've got a couple of Week 8 games to highlight, but honestly, the biggest thing that I want to talk about for Week 8 is how awful the slate of games looks. Like this.
Yes,
this is going to be. This is the kind of week that you miss in like May. Like this is the kind of week of football that you look back on and you're like, I didn't appreciate this properly when it happened, but when it's actually happening, God, is it awful. So this slate of games is truly just like not good. It's like the best games are Bears at Ravens, and that's only going to be good if Lamar plays. And then like Bills at Panthers, because they're both 4-win teams, and that's the criteria, because there's no other games like that.
Panthers haven't looked great. The Bills, they've had their missteps. And it's like, we all know who we're leaning in favor of winning this game, but they both have the same win total, so you can't really count one of them out of it. And then, the last one that really could be an important, impactful one for both of these teams, because, it goes one way and you are separating yourself away from 500, or it goes the other way and now you're 500. And that's Commanders and Chiefs. But guess what other big injury at quarterback might loom on this, even being interesting to watch? So we got 2 games that are dependent on quarterbacks coming back from injury. And then we got one that is the most mediocre of a game to actually be able to highlight. Now, You could say, oh well, Packers and Steelers. We're seeing Aaron Rodgers go against his old team. I don't care, frankly.
Yeah,
And
I'll
then,
take Bills, Ravens, and Chiefs in these three, and that's
mhm.
you know,
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I'll be the hot take artist here. I'll go Bills, Ravens, Chiefs.
okay. So hot take, you're agreeing with me.
Yes, hot take, hot take. I don't know. Really, it doesn't. I'd lean Bears, but
I can't believe in him.
injury
I can't be a bear leader.
injuries
Can't do it.
injuries will decide with Lamar coming back. So
Yeah, no Lamar. I think I'd lean Bears, obviously, but
yes, obviously, but with everything looking good for Lamar, gotta go Ravens on that one.
yeah.
With that,
But let us know in the comments if there's a game that you are like hyped to see this weekend. I mean, personally, I'm excited to see the Patriots play the Browns, but that's just because I like the Patriots. So like I'm hyped
yep.
to see my team play. But if there's a game that you're looking forward to specifically, please let us know because we would love to see some hyped up games that maybe have some underlying storylines that we're missing or some exciting battles. I mean, like you said, the Steelers Packers is a game that's happening, right? Where the Aaron Rodgers is playing against his former team, and we're gonna finally see Rodgers versus Love and see who the better quarterback is between the two, and that's always nice. But outside of that, if there's ones that we're missing, please let us know. And if you do not, do you have any words of wisdom for these people to lead their lives by?
Um, drink water.
Drink water.
Deuces.
Deuces.